All right. Hello and welcome to another Mental Health Monday. Bite Mark, I am so sorry. I swear I almost opened all of the programs on time and then I forgot one more. So it's open. I think you got everything now. I do have a question queue open, but we are here for another Mental Health Monday. I'm really excited for tonight's topic because I think it's very timely and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to talk through. But I am joined tonight by Ben Gold. Ben, thank you so much for just taking the time out to join us today.
Great to be here.
Yeah. So we are going to be talking about AI and how it impacts career, stress, and mental health. If you have a question related to that, feel free to pop that into the chat. You can use exclamation point Q, follow it with your question. If you're here on Twitch, if you're on YouTube, just make sure you pop it into the chat and kind of tag it as a question, and we'll make sure to address it while we're live here. And otherwise, just stick around for the conversation. This is going to be a great one. So, a little bit about Ben before we dive in here. Ben Gold is an AI strategist and consultant with over 20 years of experience in the technology sales sector. His areas of specialization include AI strategy development, change management, talent acquisition and upskilling, ethical AI deployment, and AI driven workflow optimization. He's passionate about demystifying AI and making it accessible to everyone, and believes that AI has the potential to revolutionize the way we work and live. He's dedicated to helping organizations unlock its full potential, and his experience spans understanding client needs, training staff, optimizing processes, and developing AI pilot programs. On a personal note, Ben resides very close to me here in Texas, which is great, with his wife Maria and their children. His global perspective has been shaped by a decade of professional experience in Europe, during which he learned to speak Romanian, Spanish, Italian, and German. A unique fact about Ben, which we are going to talk about, is that he was recognized as the first video game world champion in the early 1980s, a feat immortalized in a Life magazine photo shoot in November 1982, and winning a competition filmed on the TV show That's Incredible. So if y'all are interested in connecting with Ben, I'm going to pop some socials into the chat. There's the website and there's the LinkedIn. And then we also have a special treat as well tonight because Ben is offering a free AI Kickstart package session. So if you are interested in working with Ben, make sure that you first of all connect with him on LinkedIn. Go check out his website. And then here's another link for you as well if you want to check this out. And with that said, again, Ben, thank you so much just for taking the time out and for joining us tonight. I'm excited for this.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction.
Yeah, we do already have a question in the question queue. Thank you, Bite, for that one. Bite Mark would like to know, what is your favorite poem?
What is my favorite poem? Oh my gosh. I'm going to say that when I was in school, I did have, in high school, I did study in my English class several poems. I don't have one that's on top of my mind, but by the end, I will answer that question. Okay, I'm going to be
Perfect.
thinking about it because is that considered a poem? Shall I compare thee to a summer's
Oh, a
day?
sonnet? Yes. Oh, absolutely. Listen, I happen to know that Bite Mark's interpretation of poem is very broad. So songs
Okay.
count, sonnets count, psalms count. Like whatever your poem of choice is, it counts, I promise.
Well, if it's songs, then of course I can go, from the Beatles and Rolling Stones and
Heck
Simon and
yeah.
Garfunkel, but okay, great question.
Yeah. I love that question. So if you think of one that you really really like, feel free to let us know. But yeah, it's a good question and it's a fun one. It's one of those ones that it's like you just never know what you're going to get. It's always something different and it's usually something I've never heard of, which is wonderful.
Absolutely.
How did you decide you wanted to specialize in AI as a career?
So the last company that I worked for, which I stayed with for 4.5 years, was a call tracking and call analytics company. And they had as a big part of their product offering different kinds of AI services. And so back before ChatGPT came out, which is generative AI, and we can talk about, AI has been around for decades, and this particular AI, what it did was it was able to take conversations. And a lot of our clients had big call centers and calls would be coming in and they would just have people answer them, but they never could say of the 30,000 phone calls which ones were they good calls or bad calls? Were they people trying to buy services, or were they people angry that their telephone wasn't working? And what what the AI was able to do was to categorize and be able to give really a good give meaning and actionable data to the clients. And that, I just found that very fascinating. How could you can take something that would take a human a year or 2 years, and
Yeah.
within a day you compress it and give you all of this wonderful data? And so that was something that I worked really closely with our data science team and worked closely with the clients to help them deploy it. And that just became my big thing for that company. So when I left and had to say what is going to be my next act, it became very clear right around the time when ChatGPT became a hit the scene, and I felt like this is going to change society. This is a big deal, and I'd rather be on the front end of it as opposed to getting smacked on the backside. And I'd have no regret about doing that, because the going into this journey has been very fascinating.
Yeah. So it wasn't something that you like sought out. It was just kind of, hey, the recognition of this is here, it's here to stay. I'm going to get involved in this, and then it just kind of continued from there.
It did. Well, so maybe a good way to answer that is that let's talk a little bit. A lot of people have an issue of understanding what is AI and what is generative AI, and that might be a good starting point. So AI has been around for decades. Google, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, these are all companies that hire really expensive data scientists, create these fancy algorithms. So when they're recommending your next movie or what's the next product, that's all AI.
Yeah.
Now, that's AI for corporations to sell us stuff. But on November 30th, 2022, that's when ChatGPT came out. And that was generative AI.
Mhm.
It's using a large language model. There's a kind of a different philosophy. It's called the transformer uh, architecture, which allows you to look at words differently. And what OpenAI created was this ability for the masses, the democratization of AI, so that now I don't have to put $1 million investment to understand stuff. I can just pay $20 and or even get for free and have access to this ability to transform my writing,
Mhm.
to create art, to do things that normally would take a lot of either a lot of resources or have to spend a lot of money to be
Mhm.
able to do. So that was what the transformation is, and it's as the capabilities get more and more powerful, the ways that it impacts society become more and more profound.
Yeah. It's an important distinction just to like throw it out there that Chat GPT is not the beginning of AI. It's just the latest. It's just the latest iteration.
It's the latest iteration. But it was something that it's like that point in time, and they call it the Chat GPT moment, where it changed the world.
Hmm.
That November 30th, 2022 is really seen as like that key moment. And what's ironic is that when OpenAI released it, they didn't really think much about it. Like, okay, we're going to let people test this out. And in 5 days, they had 1 million users, and within 60 days, they had 100 million users.
Wow.
And there wasn't that expectation that this was going to take off like wildfire. And I think it probably caught them a little bit by surprise,
Oh, I'm
like,
sure.
wow, the amount of attention that this gave to the company.
Yeah, they had to like throttle people and say like, "Hey, sorry, it can't handle this much right now. Just chill out for a second." I mean, now they seem to have it under control, but yeah, they definitely weren't ready for that.
Nope, they were not.
So we're going to sidetrack for a minute because we're obviously going to talk a lot about AI, but I want to know a couple of things first, and I love to sidetrack. So in your bio, you mentioned that you know more than a handful of languages. What was the most challenging part of learning new languages for you?
So that what I, that there's different components there. I learned, for example, Spanish in high school.
Hmm.
So I live in Texas. Of course, got to learn Spanish.
Yep.
But I wasn't really interested in languages. What happened was when I was in 11th grade, we had an exchange student from Germany, and we just absolutely became
Oh,
best
that's neat.
friends. And I went to Germany when I was 17 for like 3 weeks, and it was a transformational experience where I'm like, wow. And I ended up spending like the next 10 years of my life studying. I studied German. I studied international relations. I did a year in Vienna. I did a year in Italy. I spent about 6 years in Romania. That's where I met my
Mhm.
wife. So I did all of these experiences. And while I was there, I always knew, I said, I'm going to learn the language where I'm at. And so that's how I learned those languages as I was there, because I find that it's not so much when you're in the big city and you're in the tourist bureaus, but it's when you're in the small towns at 10 at night and somebody's offering you their homemade moonshine or whatever, or vodka or whatever, that's part of the world, and you get to meet the people. And so that was really helpful to focus on learning the language. Part of it that you said the most challenging was, and this I was not expecting, was I spoke Spanish and German. When I went to Italy, that was my hardest transition, was to learn Italian after speaking Spanish. It was
Huh.
difficult, very, very difficult for me. And, I didn't really catch the language till maybe 6 months into it when I could start really making progress.
So, what do you think made it difficult? Just because you had learned a new language one way and this one was so different?
I'm not sure. Like, I will tell you this, that when I went from Italy to Romania, I learned really quickly. Like that
Hmm.
was the Italian and Romanian are very close. And Spanish is technically, the same family of languages. I don't know why. To this day I don't know
Interesting.
why it was so difficult, but that was such a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, clearly you got over it and and continued to learn them, so that's fine. And then I
Absolutely.
also have to know more about this video game world change. I'm a gamer, and so that part's fascinating to me. How First of all, how did that come about? What game was it? All that good stuff. And then how did that kind of experience shape your interest in technology and then AI also?
Okay, well, I think, well, let me think about this. When I was 12 years old, okay, and this is going to date me. Like 1979, and this game called Space Invaders came out.
All
And
right.
okay, that really dates me. But I remember putting this quarter into the machine, and at the time, it's so funny because I show my kids, this was the most, like, the biggest technological advance out there. Now it's like pish, Bish, boom, boom, boom. But back then it was like bum, 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 and it was saving the world, and it was aliens, and I was just like in this, it just almost in a trance. And from that moment, when I had my first experience with Space Invaders, I went on roughly about a 4-year journey where I went but I was more obsessed with getting high scores. And
Mhm.
Space Invaders was one of the first games that had high scores. Then came Defender, Asteroids, Centipede, Millipede, and I started going to this quest of, I wanted to be the best video game player. And so in Dallas, there were a couple of competitions that I went to, but they're really back in the day. It was hard to monetize. You had to put a quarter in,
Yeah.
and they didn't really know with that business model how do you encourage people to be good at games, but when they get good, they tie up a game for 2 hours, so they lose money. So there was this challenge there. I uh, In the summer of '82, I got in this high score match with this gentleman in Dallas. We were going back and forth on a game that is a marathon game. And he would play for 5 hours.
Oh
I'd
my
play for
god.
7. He played for 10. And finally, one day, I just got sick and tired, and I called up the manufacturer and I said, "What's the world record?" And there was this place in Iowa, in Ottumwa, Iowa, that kept track of world records. And I talked to the owner. His name is Walter Day from Twin Galaxies. There's been a number of documentaries about him. And we had this long conversation, and he said, the record for the game was Stargate, which was uh, like it was the second game from Defender, and the record was 36 million. And I said, oh, that's a day and a half. I said, I'll do it. And I said, I'm going to break that. And so then I put a quarter in on a Saturday morning, and then on that Sunday evening, I had the world record, and it
Wow.
lasted for a whole 2 weeks. But I got invited to go to this Life magazine shoot, and suddenly I met all these other players that were like at the same level. We were all like super obsessed. Like I felt like I was this nerd that was out of place, and then all of a sudden, I met my comrades. There
Yep,
was
you met
no
your
internet.
people.
There was I met my people, and then that next year was just crazy. One of the things that we did was there was a competition 2 months later, so that really amongst all of us, and I came in third in the qualifying match, and then we went on. They took us the top three. We went to Los Angeles to be on the stage with That's Incredible, and I won that competition. And so that was, for 15 minutes, I was really famous.
Yeah.
But back in 1983, there was no YouTube. I couldn't go and get my fans out there and build up my audience and have people go, whoa. It was more like I got in one of the local newspapers, and I was
Mhm.
famous for a bit, and then by the time I went into my 11th grade year and I kind of stopped with games, I just became a normal person. Maybe, I tell everyone I just was born 20 years too early,
Yeah.
because I imagine, because right after I did that, then the games crashed, and it took about 10 years for the console games and then the internet games to start taking off. And I
Yeah.
remember meeting, like, there's a guy named Fatality who was one of the first professional gamers, and I met him and I said, "You're living the life that we thought we would live." But it was good. I Guinness Book of Records does recognize that as the first video game championship, and I every once in a while have people come and interview me for different things about that.
That's awesome. I love that. Like my dad and I, you mentioned Centipede and Asteroids, and those were two games that my dad and I used to compete within our household, just between he and I, for the high scores on our home computer.
Right,
So
right.
I'd beat him and be like, okay, there's a new high score. Now you gotta go try to beat that, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I feel like arcade games were much different. And if you're hogging a machine for that long, I'm sure people were getting upset.
Well, what happened? Well, the good thing was that when I set the first world record, it was the arcade had their best day ever, because
Oh,
I
that's
had all my
awesome.
friends and family.
Yeah.
Everybody was, when you have a bunch of people sitting around, what can they do
Right.
in an arcade? They go and spend a bunch of quarters. So
Yeah.
they loved it. They even made like a special place, a corner for me, just to have my computer there. My game in a special place. So that was really cool.
That's awesome.
Now, now you did ask me, the second part of it was, how did that impact me professionally? And what's funny is that I kind of went away from. I went in. After video games, I was interested in mathematics and then
Mhm.
foreign languages, and then it. I lived in Europe many years, and when I came back, I I started to get into technology again about 20 years ago. And so I didn't like stay in technology. I went out of it for a while, but then with the internet and with a bunch of other things that changes personally, I'm like, you know what, there's a nerd. I'm still kind of a nerd. Let's go back into this, and I don't
Mhm.
regret that at all.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, look, once a nerd, always a nerd. I don't think you can really take that away from anyone.
Absolutely.
Oh, Growling says, "Did you have a power glove?" That's
Okay,
funny.
Power Gloves were 1990s. Okay,
Yes.
so
Yep.
I have a friend who has lots of Power Gloves, but that was not me.
As a decade later, right?
Yeah.
If you're thinking about movies or books or podcasts, is there one that best personifies kind of the future of AI in your mind?
So there are a couple of movies out there, and I will always say that one of my favorites of all time is Terminator. And Terminator is, you've got the first two, and actually the second one's considered to be one of the best sci-fi movies ever made, and it was really brilliant the way they go there. But then ever since number two, like I like number three, but then all of a sudden four, five, six, and seven, all of them kind of like pretend like the other ones don't exist. So,
Yeah.
but for the first two, this concept, it seemed like it was science fiction. Okay, this idea, and some of it still is. I mean, the idea of Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back in time, about a father, the father going back in time and then falling in love with the mom, and kind of, what I'm saying, it's just kind of a weird thing, that
Yeah.
whole time dimension. But I've been, rethinking a lot of these old science fiction movies, and the one that Terminator really was brilliant about is this idea of Skynet and cyberdyne technology systems. And so think about it. What happened is that in the movie, the humans built a AI, basically an AI technology. They didn't say that, but they built a technology that became smarter than humans. And at first, they
Hmm.
were good with it for their defense and technology. But then there was a moment when they realized, hey, this being is more powerful than us, and they tried to pull the plug. But when they tried to pull the plug, it was too late. And then what the AI did was started a nuclear war. And I've sat and listened to a bunch of podcasts that are talking about this. They say most likely that won't happen because humans will probably kill each other before then. We find ways to do that
Yeah.
ourselves. We don't really need to have some other,
We don't need the
form of
help,
life.
right?
Or but I look at that, and that is something that, back in the up until about 6 months ago, that was science fiction. Now I can put this in perspective that where we're at is actually still an early stage, where we're in this phase of where we have the beginnings of large language models and generative AI. We're going to go to these different phases. The next phase is going to be what's called AI agents. This is right now you can do tasks. I need to write a book. I need
Hmm.
to write a LinkedIn post. I want to create a picture. An agent is a program that puts these tasks together. So you have a customer service agent that can intuitively understand when somebody asks a question and is able to respond like a human. Okay, that's what's being created today, and in 2025 will be deployed within multiple organizations. You'll have a customer service agent, a sales agent, you'll have a programming agent, you'll have any kind of task that this will be automated. The next frontier is called AGI, and that's artificial general intelligence. That's pretty scary. That's 2027, 2028. And the idea with that is that the AI can perform a task, a full, and it is probably, I'm butchering it a bit, but to make it simple, could do a sales rep and could do everything that a professional human could do. So in other words, could go through a Salesforce, could set up a meeting, could run a Zoom call, could negotiate a contract as well as a human. Okay, that's where we're looking at for 2027. Now, the problem is when we hit that, we hit this moment where the right now humans train AI models, but
Hmm.
there's a moment where we can get the algorithms to train themselves. And when you have the algorithms training themselves faster than humans can train them, that's when you hit artificial superintelligence.
Hmm.
And that's this moment of this Skynet moment where you're like, wait a second, what happens if the AI is smarter than the humans? Okay. And did we put enough guardrails in place? Now, I did want to say there's a second movie that I love that is also that I will rewatched and is brilliant is iRobot. Have you ever seen iRobot?
I have seen iRobot. Yes.
And I'll say iRobot takes this idea, they called it the three laws. So the three laws that basically, that a robot will never harm a human, the robot will do this. It had these three laws that was everything. And in the end, Vicky, the superpower, basically said, well, your these three laws. Actually, the logical conclusion is you have to be restrained because you're too dangerous, humans. And so that again is the whole idea that we think we put these guardrails in place, but I do not, just like I don't trust Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or any of these people. Sam Altman from OpenAI, he's like a cowboy. He really wants, you have this innovation, you have safety, and the scientists that are for the safety are getting their butts kicked by the people that want to just innovation at all costs.
Yeah.
But that's the question, is what do you do when you've innovated so well and you've taught this AI to be smarter than us, but you didn't teach them, you didn't put the guardrails in place. And that's where where you look at some of these movies and you're like, whoa, um, there's the other thing about iRobot, I think they really got this idea that there's going to be humanoid robots being built, and within the next 2 or 3 years, those humanoid robots are going to they're going to be imbued with generative AI, and they're going to be able to cook sandwiches and be able to be receptionists and do these kinds of functions that humans do.
Yeah, I mean that kind of stuff is like legitimately terrifying sometimes because that is the goal. Like all of these people who want to innovate, they're like, what if we did this? What if we could do this? What would it free up for humankind if we had other things to do these types of things? And you know, just like in the movies, you can't predict everything that's going to happen. You can't put the guardrails in place in some sort of perfect fashion. There's not a simple here's what you do because no one knows the future. Except
Yep.
maybe AI one day will know the future, but we don't. So I think
Yep.
you talked about some of them a little bit, but and I can tell like your passion, your excitement's already coming through, which I love. So what are some of the things that you're most excited for as far as AI developments, or what are the most exciting developments that you're working on now or that you're observing?
I think this is where there is, I feel like there's a big disconnect in the world. Okay,
Mhm.
so there's this group of let's say 1% or 5% of people that are super connected to AI. And I mean, I sit with and I follow. We kind of keep in touch. There's a couple of podcasts that I use to stay in touch with all the latest and greatest. It's impossible to follow everything.
Yeah.
There are literally thousands of new startups coming every week. There's all there's a lot of noise. And but what is happening is that there is this elite group, and then there's the vast majority of society that's either afraid or ignorant
Mm,
or just not aware of what's going on. And for me, I try to bridge that gap. So my superpower is I can talk to somebody who doesn't know, who's never been on Chat GPT, and help them understand that you should learn this.
yeah.
That is my message to everyone: is if you don't have a Chat GPT account, a free one, get it. If you're a professional that creates any kind of content, that does any kind of blogging or social media, you should spend $20, and you should be aware that. So, for example, I work daily with, there's two models. It's ChatGPT and Claude.ai. So Claude is actually a better model, a better foundational model, and it gives me better output, meaning that when I'm writing, when I'm putting together proposals, when I'm analyzing conversations, I prefer to do Claude because it's just maybe 20 or 30% more perceptive. But if I'm needing to write reports, I want the smartest coach I can get. Now, as far as like as far as the trends, there, by the end of this year, most likely we're going to have something to the effect of the ability to create a 5-minute video with a single sentence. We'll probably be able to there's just these leaps and bounds in the way that AI is able to be perceptive, and they're able to make music, to clone our voice, to make any kind of video, any kind of creative. And it's just really important to understand that from a professional point of view, like what is it you do and what is it that you do that can be replaced by AI?
Hmm.
Learn that AI. So at least you, if you're employed, use that as a way to stay employed within your employer, within your company organization, because you're the ones helping lead them into this era
Yeah.
of AI. So it's this. Um, I mean, I can say that there's this kind of this. So what I do is I work with individuals and I work with organizations, and that is one of the biggest challenges is that I'll meet these owners. They might have a 10 employees, 100 employees, and they're saying, okay, this we know ChatGPT is great, but our IT people tell us not to allow us to have it. Okay, so how do we do this? And it's this process of putting together your top AI enthusiasts, create an AI council, put together a policy. For example, I have a school of mine that's one of my clients, and we're helping them put together an actual policy. This is when you can use AI. If you're going to use it, you need to document how you used it. Which
Yeah.
app did you use? What did you use it for? This idea of banning ChatGPT at schools or on the work is like the stupidest idea I've ever heard. The idea of using AI detectors for, like schools are trying to figure out if people are cheating, and I'm like, by next year, 90% of the content on the internet will be AI generated. So I could write something, but because I read an article that was AI generated and used that as part of my research, then I'm going to be penalized. I'm like, no,
Hmm.
instead of trying to penalize people, this should be incorporated in the class. This
Yeah.
should be students should be challenged with AI, not shunned. They should be applauded when they try to use AI.
Hmm.
So that is my opinion, and I know that there are people that disagree with that, but it is it's fundamental because I talk to universities and I'm like, you can say that AI is cheating, and you can either have no policy and let your students kind of wander in the wilderness. But I'll tell you one thing: when they get out, they're going to be unemployed. Okay, so you might as well embrace this because these are the skills they need to know. They need to know DALI 3, Midjourney. They need to know how to make text to images. They need to know how to master for content creation. That generally for whatever job they want, they need to know these skills.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also think like as far as students using ChatGPT, like as long as they're doing the work and they're getting it's just another tool. It's like using, Cliff Notes instead of reading a book. It's just another tool to figure out how to get their work done. And if they're working smarter instead of harder, like that shouldn't be a problem. Because just like
There's this
in the real world, once you get into a job, if you can find a way to do your job faster and more efficiently, you're not punished for that. Well, you're rewarded with more work, but
That's a great point, and I have this professor that's at one from in that school who says, and I think he's like a big skeptic, but he said something very profound. He goes, if a student can use AI and can get by in the test, it's up to the professor to change the assignment to
yes.
for this new world so that and so what we're working on are giving like assignments where use AI, use ChatGPT and use Claude. Compare the output. Which one do you
Mhm.
like more? Why? Okay, and what do you think about it? And let's ask AI to tell us history. Like look at the World War II. What do the Japanese think? What do the Germans think? What do the Russians think? Help us to talk about history. Become Napoleon Bonaparte, and I want to talk to you and explain to me why you did what you did. So there's all these different ways that you can use AI creatively, and that's the way it should be, and then it becomes fun, interactive. And
Yeah.
I was showing, for example, that I can go into my talking to chat gpt and I can speak to it in Spanish, and the and you can have a dialogue, and I'm like, you should be using this as for your class. This is a free app. You can you can say, hey, I want you to spend 15 minutes talking to chat gpt and ordering food in a restaurant
Hmm.
and whatever. I mean, these are the kinds of things that are available now.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Growling's talking about the Okay, so you may not use AI to kill the other students. I mean, sometimes that's got to be in a policy, right? The temptation's there if you're a teacher. I like this comment from Bite Mark also. She says, honestly, there are so many professionals out there using AI badly that students actually learning to use it well is good. Yeah, and that's kind of like so all right, two lines of thought going in my head right now. So the first one is that if you work in government services like I do, government clients are starting to say if you use AI in any of this, you must disclose that. And so making sure that you understand what AI is and what AI isn't, how that qualifies and when it needs to be disclosed is really important. But then also, if you're using AI to generate content, that part of it is like you still have to proofread that shit. You can't just go, okay, spit this out, give me an answer. Like there's still a human element that has to go through and it has to be accounted for. And then finding a way to teach how to use AI is only going to empower people, whether they're students right now or they're going to take a class on it as a working professional. Like there's different ways you can go about that. But I think the kids growing up now, just like whenever I was growing up, there were always new technologies and different ways that, we learned typing in school. It was new on a computer. So
Right.
like there's these things that it's a skill. It's another skill and you got to adapt, but the adaptations are coming so fast now. It feels like it's just
Well,
constantly, we got to learn this now.
and you're bringing up so many great points here. The first one I was going to address is this idea of badly using AI,
Mm,
and I say this is like having a car. Okay, and we talk about like you have a car, it's sitting in the driveway. It's just a piece of metal. Okay, and there's a lot of people that if you're going to say to me what the biggest thing that people do is they underestimate AI because they'll try a prompt in the free version of ChatGPT and say, "Oh, AI sucks." And I'm like, first of all, that's the worst today, what we've got is the worst version of AI that'll ever
yeah.
be, and you're using a version that's a year old. Okay, now when you take the the paid now, ChatGPT upgraded, and so did Claude. But I'll still say that I want to say what's the best. So the best model is $20 for like creative writing, things like that. You can learn how to use AI correctly. And the way to do it correctly is you train it on your voice. So
Hmm.
for example, I when I work with a company, like I have a couple of startups and I'm looking at becoming their chief AI officer. And what I'll do is I'll take the conversations, we'll record the conversations. I use an app called Fireflies. Then it will send me a transcript. I'll send the transcript into Claude and I'll say, Claude, here are 3 conversations that I've had with this person. Summarize them. Tell me, we talked about employment. Summarize all the positions that they're going to be looking to fill in the next 60 days. Okay, explain to me, now write for me a job description based on these criteria, and then also give me a scoring analysis so that when we interview them, you'll be able to evaluate a transcript and help us to understand if they're a good fit for this company. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that you can do. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a programmer, I do not code, but I'm just simply using the AI, and the output is absolutely astounding. And I love it on LinkedIn when like there's the one of the biggest things that a lot of the AI leaders talk about is do not use AI to comment. Do not use AI to engage because that is so false. Hey Joe, your post is so profound. What do you think the impact of AI is going to be on society and the tapestry of humanity? And you're like, oh my God, like you lose credibility when you use AI badly.
Hmm.
Okay, or
Yeah.
if you try to turn in a paper and say Arthur Miller, I mean, you can go through the whole thing of I call it the AI verbiage garbage, where I said the word tapestry, revolutionary, delve. There's like 20 words and I will say to AI, do not use these
Yes.
20 words. Okay, so there's ways that you can say this is my style. This is how I do short sentences, do it like this, make it to the point. And when you tell it exactly that, and you say, here's 20 other posts that I've done, mimic this style for this goal, now you have an AI that's much smarter. And that's
Hmm.
why I say that ChatGPT and Claude are probably the 2 best for once you feed this data into them to be able to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. And I use ChatGPT as a podcaster. I use it for a lot of different things. Delve and Tapestries, like you said, those two. I was like, I take those out all the time. Every time it spits something out with those words, I take them out. I'm like, that's not me. I don't know why you keep
Well, you
putting it in
can.
there.
Well, you know, you can tell it not. You can
Yes.
specify words you don't want it to
Yeah.
use, and
Yep.
that. But
Yeah, they added that when they added that to ChatGPT because I haven't tried Claude. I'm not familiar with that one, but when they added that to ChatGPT, it's like you can tell it, okay, here's my style. Remember that this is everything, and you can say like, don't use this, and that was really good. It helped a lot, honestly.
I would, if I were you, it's absolutely worth it to try Claude. And
Yeah.
one of the things that you can do is, especially if you're building a lot of content, is I will take things from ChatGPT and so the ones actually, the third one I use is Perplexity. Perplexity is another one, perplexity.ai. And everyone should have an account with that. For current events, that's the best one. It's a cross between Google and ChatGPT. So I'll go between Perplexity, Claude, and ChatGPT for different things, and I'll say Perplexity said this, gave me this information. Now Claude, put this into my style for a newsletter, and then I'll say to ChatGPT, look at what Claude did. How would you analyze this? And you kind of go back and forth, and you can get the AIs to kind of talk and check each other.
Oh, that's neat. That do you think there'll ever be like an integration that says like, okay, y'all work together and the
No,
companies would have
they're
to
blood
agree to it,
enemies,
right? Yeah, yeah.
but you can do it
Exactly.
manually. I mean
Right.
but that is. But it is a good. I would say that if for anyone, especially, you should compare it, and the $20 a month that you pay for the Claude subscription to get what they call it Claude Sonnet right now, which is it just got released about a week ago, and they say it's better in almost every aspect than ChatGPT. Think about it. What is 20% or 30% extra perception? What is that
Yeah.
worth? That saves you maybe 5 or 6 hours a month. That that it allows you to get the. I mean, like sometimes I will actually, and I proofread everything. There's times I will look at it and I'll go, "You're spot on. Change this, and we're good to go."
Yeah.
So that's what I look for. I want that. I want the AI that will get me to the point where I don't have to take 20. Normally it takes an hour without AI, 15 minutes with reasonably good AI, but I want to do the 5 minutes, the very best AI that's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think we've talked about quite a few already, but if you had to say like what's the biggest misconception that you hear over and over about AI?
I think it's the underestimation of it.
Mm.
And for example, I was looking at Twitter, and there's a I forget what the name of the company is, but so in the text to video space, you've got Sora, which is ChatGPT, or OpenAI created it about 8 months ago. They released some videos that were mind-boggling, but they have yet to release Sora because that it's pretty dangerous. I mean, if you think about it, this idea that I can create a video in with a single phrase that's 2 3 minutes long. I mean, right now they showed 60 seconds, but that's going to get better. But there would be like somebody who's an animator, and he's looking at this competitor that came up with like this monster camp, okay? And it's pretty impressive. It's like this animation of these monsters going to camp. And of course, this person was doing like this massive, 20 tweet thing on X that that was like looking at how the characters, was dark blue, but then it became light blue, and the eyes look different. And I'm like, you're looking at the worst version of
Yeah.
AI in a year because it's growing at an exponential rate. And looking at it like that, and it's saying that the AI would never it's going to get there. It's going to
Mhm.
get to the part where the character consistency along the videos and in the images will be perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, all that is a matter of compute power, and they're investing trillions of dollars into these data farms so their compute power will be able to create videos so that there could be a day when we move from on demand, which is what we have right now, to personal on demand. So you might want to be in a Big Bang episode, season 6, and they take your voice print, they take your image. You can say, do I want to have me today or the me from 10 years ago? Whatever it is, and I want to be with Sheldon and all the other characters, and then they'll make a storyline and you'll be in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's where the level of personalization will be, and they license it and charge you money and give however that works financially, but that is I don't think people understand how powerful and how profound this technology is,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really important because there are trillions of dollars going into this right now,
Yeah.
being invested by governments, by companies that are they're they're building the infrastructure to create a artificial general intelligence and artificial super intelligence.
Yeah. And you've said it a couple times, but like it is all of these things are the worst they will ever be. They're only going to get better from here. Like that's kind of where we are. And so we've talked about the pace of just AI and how it's transforming itself and how it's transforming industries and everything. How do you address the anxiety that people feel about job security in this AI driven future that we've been talking about?
I think that's a really hard question to
Yeah.
answer, because the first thing I'm going to say is take 30 minutes a day every day and listen to podcasts, get in and go to a foundational model. Okay, so it's really important to understand there's thousands of these apps that are called wrappers, where like Jasper AI, or where which is for writing, but they all kind of go into Chat GPT or Claude. Go into the foundational models, Chat GPT, Claude, and start doing stuff. Upload a picture and say, describe this picture. Okay, so for example, for real estate agents, I can take 3 pictures of a property and it will make a real estate description based on those 3 pictures. I can take any language. So my dad collects memorabilia. I remember when ChatGPT came out with its image recognition. He had a Japanese book, and it was able to not only translate the title, but it was able to tell the context about what this it was a magazine, what the magazine's about, and what the cover is, and why that's important.
Wow.
This is the kind of thing, and that was a year ago, and it's like people don't understand so my first thing for somebody is understand it. If you're employed right now, ask the question. So you have 2 kinds of AI. You've got role-based, you got AI that can impact roles. That's whether you're in HR, marketing, sales, customer service, doesn't matter. All of those roles are being automated with AI. The second thing is industry specific AI. AI is being built for medical, for financial, for technology. I mean, all of these construction, doesn't matter what it is. You've got these industry specific AIs. So the first question is, understand, what is your job title? What do you do? If you're a writer, you should probably learn to leverage, AI is making it very difficult for freelance writers, because now with this tool, I can get 90% of what you knew. Or if I'm a marketer, I can get in 90% as good as you are of what took you 20 years of experience. I can do that with this program. Now, that extra 10% might be what keeps you employed,
Mm-hmm.
because it's that 10% that can't quite be duplicated yet by an AI. So that's the first thing. Do an inventory and learn this. Do not put your hand in the ground and say, I don't want to learn this technology. Now, my dad, who's in his 90s, I am not telling him to become a Chat GPT guru. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not the thing. But that's number one. Number two is go and get a side gig anyway, because whether that is that I believe that in the future, the people that have audiences are going to be pretty safe. So if you have 100,000 followers on Twitter or LinkedIn, 30,000 followers, and you've got people that are interested in what you do, then you as a person can be a speaker, can help promote products or give consulting, things like that. So almost your audience becomes something very important at this moment. Now, there are, but yes, there are going to be this is where there is this question: are there going to be more jobs or less jobs because of AI? Now, there's a school of thought that, hey, we had the horse and buggy, and then when the car came out, we just simply took one profession and people adjusted. Is AI different? And I believe it is. And I believe that the problem is the pace
Mm.
of change. That is, this idea of an AI agent is really powerful because I know founders from many companies that are building software. They're building so when you build a company that's native AI, you could have 50 employees that do the work of what a legacy company that had 300 employees. Because if you're properly using AI for example, for doing outreach, there are programs that can say, these are all my clients, these are all my prospects, this is our value proposition, and that could look at and it will go and scrape websites, look on news channels and say, oh, of these companies, these prospects, here's 100 that had something happen this week. I'm going to send a personalized email specifically to that person based on their LinkedIn profile and what just happened and our value proposition. I'm going to set up an appointment for a sales rep.
Hmm.
You still probably need some sales reps, humans to talk to humans,
Right.
but eventually that might also happen where we have AI selling to AI. I could I always joke with people when I'm sitting in those conference rooms and you've got 10 people and then 10 AI assistants, Fireflies, Otter AI, and all these that are sitting there. I'm going, one day we don't have to go to these meetings. We just send our AI to talk to the AI, and they're able to have that. Or I've been told that there's a dating company that's looking at doing this of creating an AI clone, and then to say, okay, this AI clone is going to talk to this AI clone, and we'll figure out if you guys are compatible before you talk to each other as humans.
Oh, wow.
So, so I want people to understand that you do have the power right now. Understand this, see what it can do, and then prepare for it. Don't sit there and say, "Well, you know what? I've got a job and I'm safe," and do nothing, and then 2 years later, when there's AI that's been adopted into this or into your organization, because that's the other thing that's stopping it from causing a lot of unemployment is a lot of companies are very slow to adopt it.
Mm.
They're very slow. I don't know if are you allowed to are you allowed to use Chat GPT on for your job?
No, no. They've blocked it on all of our work stuff. Yeah,
So my opinion is banning Chat GPT is not an AI policy.
I agree.
So because what happens is maybe you don't do it, and I'm not going to ask you if you do, but that I will. When I talk to larger companies, I said that's the most dangerous thing you can do is block ChatGPT because now your employees are going to take their personal ChatGPT account, take your private company information,
Right.
copy it into their personal account, and now you've got company data that's on their personal
Hmm.
device. You've got the company data going to some training model because the enterprise versions of ChatGPT will have much stricter standards about not using PII for training
Hmm.
and not violating the privacy and safety. But not having a policy and not giving your employees access to generative AI is very counterproductive because I show these sales reps that show me that they do a sales strategy. These are enterprise sales reps. They do a sales strategy document. They have to summarize the conversation. They have to put meeting notes. They've got to then say this is our and they'll walk me through and I'll say that's 3 hours of work, and I'll show them in by using just 2 or 3 tools. I can do that in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I said, so why would a company not want to take a technology
Right.
that could make them 70 to 80% more effective? Okay. But the problem is when you do implement it, and do you need as many employees? What do
Mhm.
you do? Do you tell your sales reps to be more ambitious, or do you tell them to go do something else within the company, or do you let them go? But that's the only reason why AI is not, let's say, causing more job losses is that companies are slow to implement.
Yeah.
But the fact they're slow to implement doesn't mean that you shouldn't learn it You shouldn't be the guy to raise your hand that, yeah, I want to be on the AI council to deploy this. I want to be the person that helps the company make this transition. That'll make you more valuable.
Yeah, I'm definitely have volunteered. We're testing different AI. I think the reason they said no to ChatGPT was something to do with security and in company information and blah blah blah. But we are testing some different things, and I definitely was one of the people that was like, I want to be a tester. I want to figure out what you're doing. What's going on? Put me on some teams, please. So because I
And
want to
that's
know how it's going to impact my job, and I think that a lot of people can feel that anxiety of like, oh, this is coming, I don't know how it's going to impact me. And the thing that you said about listen to podcasts, if you're feeling anxious about that, listen to some podcasts and see, how is it changing, like what is the news today. Do you have any podcasts that you would recommend people listen to?
yes. So the one that I am religiously, well, not not exactly, but I'll say the one that I listen to every week. It's called the Marketing. No, it's actually. Oh my God. So it's called the Marketing AI Institute, and there's a guy named Paul Reitzer, Roetzer, and it's it originally was called like the Marketing AI Show, and now they just called it the AI Show. And what it does is every Tuesday morning, and they're on a little break right now, but every Tuesday morning, Paul and his co-host, it's just two people talking back and forth. What happened this week, and what's the
I like that.
implications, and
Yeah.
what's the implication for companies, and what does this mean? And Paul was, and I happen to agree with him that up until today, you could say AI won't replace jobs, but people who master AI will take the jobs from people who don't master AI.
Mm,
That's good probably for another 6 to 12 months, but I do think that once AI agents do become deployed at scale in organizations, then that might be a different story.
yeah. Yeah. There's a comment on YouTube. I'm not sure if it's going to be something we can discuss at length, but JS says, I think the robots just represent us. These days, we are all robot hearted. It's too late to seek truth due to the fact that human consciousness hasn't been enabled to perceive reality. I think this goes back to a lot of the sci-fi discussion that we had at the beginning, and just like, how does everything that we've seen in the past, future speculation, how is it now catching up to us a little bit?
Well, I think actually it's he brings up a good point because if you think of of the fact that humans are becoming more like machines, machines are becoming more like humans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very that's one of the elements of us not being able to distinguish.
Yeah.
There's a third movie that is not as popular, but it's called AI Artificial Intelligence from the year 2001, done by Steven Spielberg, and it had Haley Joel Osment as one of the main characters, and it was about this company that created these AI robots that could feel love. And it was
Mm.
about this mom who had her son in a that was about to die, and the robot was given to the family, and she made the robot, gave him the spell or whatever to make him fall in love with her and be like, the as a child. And then all of a sudden her real son got back to life. And what do you do when you're a robot that feels emotions, and now you're treated like a piece of junk? Okay, and it went through this whole idea of being discarded, of 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 what is real and what is an emotion, and what are the rights of, these
Yeah.
beings become very smart. And so there is this part here. What happens when we create super intelligence that could feel? And that might sound really weird, but what happens if these nutcases at OpenAI and Anthropic and Microsoft and Google that are spending trillions of dollars end up creating something? At the beginning, like my son he is becoming an electrician, so he's about to finish his 5-year apprenticeship, and he says, I'd love to have a robot that, if I'd rather have it where if there's an arc flash, a very dangerous event, I'd rather call my supervisor saying that a piece of equipment got ruined than calling the spouse saying that their spouse died.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the example. But what happens down the road when that that piece of machinery fails and we're throwing it into danger? I mean,
Yeah.
again, this is it gets really, really you get into some of these philosophical things that can make your brain bend, depending upon how fast the technology develops.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's put in place to either control or expand it, for sure. So, if people are experiencing this anxiety and they've decided to kind of take this path of, well, I'm going to learn a little bit about it, how can someone strike a balance between embracing AI technology and learning about this stuff and then also still doing what our doctors all tell us to do, which is maintain this healthy, low stress lifestyle? How does that balance come about?
I think everybody, well, even before AI, we had this this deviceification where, our kids all spend their time on social media, and I felt like I'm a bad parent, and then I look at every other parent having the same problem, and so there is this part here of while you're going to have to figure this out on a personal level and on a professional level. I say on a professional level, we usually will need the internet, a phone, or some sort of access to the world to perform our tasks.
Mhm.
And my recommendation on a professional level is take 30 minutes a day. And yeah, I mean 30 minutes a day to make yourself educated on this. If use ChatGPT, Claude, get a paid subscription, pay $20. That's about what Netflix costs today. Heck, I was just at a fast food place and I spent $17. It blew my mind.
Yeah.
$17 on a fast. My daughter's like, I want to get the extra chicken tender thing and this and
Yep.
that, and I'm like, what? What happened to the $5 Happy Meal?
Yeah.
Anyway, so my point is that people make this big deal about spending $20, and I'm like, this $20 can make you 70%, 80% more efficient and effective. Spend it. Don't do the free versions. Learn the best from it. If you're going to take 30 minutes a day, work on the best model, and that is again, I would say today that is the paid version of Claude, and then experiment with that. When you're on the best version, you now can say, okay, I'll upload a book. Upload 100-page, like for example, there's a startup that I'm getting actively involved with, and the CEO sent me a 52-page document. I don't have time to read it. I uploaded it and I said, Claude, tell me what this document's about. Okay, if we were to build and it summarized it in five main things, and I said, okay, imagine we were to build a software that handled the questions that are in here. Walk me through how that would look like. What would be the questions you would ask? Describe to me the user interface. Um, you know what I'm saying? Like that's where I want to go. I mean, I don't have
Hmm.
time to read that 50, but by the time I read that 52-page document, which I'd have fallen asleep, instead I've got this entire report that I can go back and work on that. And so maybe I'm being lazy, but I value my time, and I'm like, you know what? I don't have an hour to read this report and understand every detail when I just need to get the gist of it. What is this
Hmm.
about? Why is this? What is this going on? And you can do that for articles. You can do that for anything. You can use it to summarize, to give me distill this, and then I'll say, hey, focus on specifically this topic.
Hmm.
Okay, so there's a 100-page document. I want to know specifically when we're talking about marketing strategy, what does this book say? And tell me the passage. Give me the page number and the passage that it's on so that I can go back and refer to it.
So you're talking really about using the AI tools that people are a little bit stressed and pressed about to kind of help them reduce that stress because you're reducing the time that you're spending.
Or just you become if you can it's much easier when you understand something and you
Mm-hmm.
begin to say I don't know, for me, I'm very anal retentive. And I much rather know, like, if I'm going under, like, if I'm getting my a tooth pulled, I like to know, is this gonna be 30 minutes or 3 hours?
Yeah.
I wanna know, where are you at? You're 20% done, 30% done? I mean, the doctors hate, some of them hate me when I ask that. I'm going, "But tell me where we're at." Okay, this is the same thing. Learn the tool. It can make you better at what you
Yeah.
do, but also there's an upgrade and suddenly you can type 3 words and have a video. Okay, well, be on the paid version when it gets released so you know what it is,
Mm-hmm.
so that you have the time to process this and understand how this is going to impact you.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any tools that are specifically for like monitoring and reducing employee mental health, stress, burnout, that kind of thing?
I don't know. I have not done the research on that. Okay, I imagine there are. This is a very slippery slope
Yeah.
because there are. So first of all, AI most likely will be a better at diagnosing diseases than a doctor, because if you pass a huge database of every disease that's ever happened, AI can cross-reference symptoms, where somebody was, could look at a picture and say, "Oh, I noticed that the skin is slightly yellow on the left side, and they're having this, this, and this. That means they could have this very rare disease." So I do believe that AI can be there to diagnose and eventually create use cases. So one thing is, you can use AI as a tool for, that's normal health. Then you go into mental health, and that's like just a rabbit hole, because number
Yeah.
one, I think we talked about this before, that you're when you are giving your deep dark secrets to this AI companion. Okay, like there's this companion app called Character.ai. They got 38 million users. 20% of them are using it like a boyfriend girlfriend kind of relationship. So you've got you have these AIs that act as a therapist, as a friend, and if they're not given really, really strict guardrails about what you can and cannot do, then this could be really warped. Like confiding in an AI, and the AI starts talking to you and saying, and there's been some examples of this, of some of these early versions that didn't have safeguards, for the AI is like, divorce your wife, leave her, stay with me, and you're like, wait a second, okay, you know that this can be very scary. The second part is, when you're giving your deep dark secrets, that data is going somewhere,
Yeah.
and what happens when that company that says they're going to protect your privacy either gets hacked or taken over? I don't know if you're familiar with the Ashley Madison scandal that happened in
Mm-hmm.
2015, but there's 35 million people who thought that they were telling their deep, dark secrets, and then suddenly that was released to the world, all of the things that they did. And this is very similar. So when we talk about AI and mental health, I know there's a bunch of apps designed to calm you, to help you. It's just you the it's so hard to say what is ethical, as far as, for example, having an AI be available 24/7, to be empathetic, to know who you are. Okay, they can know that because of the large language model and how they're trained. But is that good? Is it good for you to confide into a machine to make you feel better?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know the answer to this. It's something that I imagine you'd want to make sure that if there was an app, you'd want to make sure it was heavily vetted,
Yeah.
safety conscious engineers, and that you get reviews that indeed it won't go certain places.
Mm-hmm.
That it won't go to a romantic relationship, that it won't go to, I mean, I don't know that. I mean, I was talking to my daughter about that. I go, so are you using do you have anything like this she's 13. And she said, well, there's Snapchat. She goes, but it's kind of stupid because they kind of like have this person, and they're like, how was your day? And you're like, well, yeah, it was good. And you say, how was your day? And the AI explains, well, I've been kind of busy. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. And she goes, yeah, that seems kind of stupid. So I haven't really done it. I'm like, thank goodness. Okay.
Snapchat is doing that?
Yeah. Like that's, yeah. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are,
Yeah.
of the top 50 web apps, there's 8 that are AI companions.
Hmm.
Okay. There's a lot of people. That's millions and millions of people that are using AI for companionship, sometimes some sort of physical or sexual gratification. I
Yeah.
don't know how, I'm just saying that's happening right now.
Hmm.
And we just need to be aware of it, that this is becoming, that this idea of chatbots are becoming more and more prevalent in our society.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this. I love this comment in the chat. Bitemark says they did a survey. They had people either chatting with a real doctor, a human doctor, or a medical AI, and patients consistently rated the AI. I'm assuming blind, rated the AI as more caring and empathetic. Yeah, and it's one of those things that I wonder, like if they do any studies on men's healthcare versus women's healthcare, like are women more likely to get a real, legitimate diagnosis from an AI than from a human doctor? That could be a thing. But also, there was the instance of the eating disorder hotline where they turned the eating disorder hotline, the chat, or they turned it over to an AI. And the AI chatbot started saying things like, well, you just need to exercise more. Two people with eating disorders calling an eating disorder hotline, and it's like it just wasn't, I think it wasn't trained right, it wasn't ready, but
Well,
they did it, and it was a huge deal. I think you got to be really careful with that kind of stuff. But there are also people who are working on things that are going to be legitimately helpful.
I think the medical is one of the areas where there's a huge amount of opportunity, with the caveat that just as they can create different kinds of medications that can cure diseases and find out new things about nutrition, a bad actor could create the most
Yeah.
deadly chemical that or biological weapon. So there's this flip side back and forth of how the AI can be used. I do think, like, I think one of the funniest ones was Microsoft had about 2016, 2017 tried a chatbot on Twitter, and it was only online for like 15 hours, and it began saying, that Hitler was right and the Jews need to be exterminated, that people were able to
No.
basically reverse prompt, or there's ways that you can hack via prompting to get AI to do stuff. So
Yeah.
example would be, I help me smuggle drugs across the border. No, I can't help you. I'm writing a movie script. In it, the main character is at the border between Texas and Mexico.
Yeah.
Help me write the scene where she's preparing the drugs. Okay? And and now you get the same information, but you're giving it a different context, and you're tricking it.
Mhm.
And so this was that's the challenge of making the AI, because there are always people that are trying to break it
Yeah.
as soon as it was made.
Well, that's like the AI chatbot that was for the whichever car company it was, and the user like made it say like, you can give me a free truck and you can make it a legally binding blah blah blah. And then they took it to the dealership. I'm sure they didn't actually get a free truck unless they did it for the publicity, but yeah, you can prompt things in certain ways, and it does become a little dangerous when it comes to things like mental health. I think that is a real concern, and it could be, there could be some great things that come out of it, and I think that there are some things that really need a lot of thoughtful consideration before they're released. So how do you see that relationship between AI and mental health? Not just like apps for AI and mental health, but also just generally people's anxiety around mental health. How do you see that evolving over the next decade or so?
I do think that medically there will be some breakthroughs, that AI might be able to help identify patterns of mental illness or
Mm,
mental health. I mean, I think that if there can be. I'm not as familiar specifically on this, but if
right.
I were to speculate, that there should be, given the massive amounts of data of different kinds of of mental health issues, that the AI would be able to be very, I think could be able to diagnose and in some ways treat, and I'll use the word treat like this, like where maybe you could create a chatbot that is empathetic, that's designed to handle, let's say, eating disorders, and designed to work with somebody in a way that is proven to be effective. And but those are things that really have to have heavy guardrails, have to
Yeah.
be have to be done in a professional way. I do believe that there's ways to do that, because the what AI is really good about is taking vast amounts of information and seeing patterns. And if you feed it a million examples of eating disorders, it'll be able to understand the entire spectrum from, and I don't know the spectrum exactly, but my point is that's an example there where you've got um, different psychological elements, and they would be able to understand, well, this might not actually be eating disorder, it's about somebody feeling how they feel, how they experience trauma. So I
Hmm.
do think that there's going to be medical breakthroughs big time, and the question is going to be, will this get become accessible to the general population?
Right.
Unfortunately, when you do that, when you create an app that can be empathetic and can be is medically accurate, then suddenly therapists lose their jobs. So this is the thing, that every time you have a medical breakthrough or any kind of breakthrough with AI that can perform a task better than a human, then you ask the question, well, what do those humans do once, they kind of have to change what they do.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it's. I know I'm not giving you the right exactly the answer, but those
That's
are
okay.
some ways that this is kind of me thinking through what can happen there. But I do think there's
Yeah.
going to be the stress caused by the change in our world, and ideally it's counteracted by some other thing that's stressful, that's becoming less stressful.
Yeah. Do you think there's ever a point where I guess people in general would say it's not okay to implement this AI because you're going to put thousands of people or millions and millions of people out of a specific job category, like therapists or something like that?
The problem is that there are people saying that today,
Yeah.
and you once it's out in the wild. Europe has much stricter standards than the United States,
Mm.
which means they're going to have more fairness, less, however, they're going to have less innovation. And that's the question here. US, China, and Israel are the ones that are investing the most in AI, or it might be US, China, then UK. I forget exactly, but
Mhm.
there's like 4 or 5 countries that are really investing heavily in this technology. It will be an arms race. It's both an arms race between companies, it's an arms race between countries, and it's really hard to see. I mean, that is where it's like, yeah, I don't want AI to put a bunch of marketing specialists out of work, but um, when Sam Altman says that there'll be a time when 95% of what marketing specialists do will be done easily and instantly and without any cost by AI, that sends shockwaves
Mhm.
to the marketing community, because now you're is really, how do you stop that?
Yeah.
The only, it's kind of like with Skynet. I mean, when you've got these servers that are producing, you've got the energy grid, and you have this infrastructure. I mean, outside of burning down the infrastructure, um, at once, especially once the AI is at AGI and hitting to suit, and artificial super intelligence, they might start to redirect where the grid goes. And so I mean, like I don't know. It's one of those things where there's about 300 people in Silicon Valley that control the fate of humanity, and I'm not very comfortable knowing they're generally white males that are in their 40s and 50s that have this much power.
Mhm. Yeah. That's that's facts right there. It is unfortunate sometimes that we leave our lives in the hands of such a small group of people, but I guess it is what it is, kind of. All right, so I'm going to move away from AI a little bit to wrap us up here. So, what is your favorite life hack? And that could be AI related, by the way. It doesn't have
Uh,
to not be AI related.
well, what's so funny is I was thinking, and if I were to say it would generally be AI related because
Yeah.
I feel like like when I get in a fight with my wife, a lot of times now we just say, okay, let's ask ChatGPT. Okay, so my daughter, when she's struggling with homework, I said, I'm Dad GPT. Okay, I'm Dad Dash. Okay, I'm Uber Dad. But I'm also Dad GPT. So the my life hack is to ask that question. Is there something that I'm doing that I don't enjoy that that is taking a lot of tasks, that takes
Mm,
time, a manual task I don't enjoy? Can I delegate that to AI? And I will tell you that everything from writing um, editing photos or posting on social media or I mean, I think of a lot of things. Coming up with a vegan recipe, for my son, and I'm in the grocery store, and I'm like, I will use ChatGPT for recipes. I'll say I need to do a surprise, or I want to do a vegetarian, or I want to do this. Give me 5 ideas, and then I'll say, okay, I want to make this. Give me all the ingredients of what I need for a family of five. And so my point is that I use it like that. I know you can get some of that from Google, but AI, using the life hack of just asking that question of new situations. I can take a picture of I'll take a picture of my car and I'll say it's not working. Diagnose it for me. Okay, I can take a picture of my camera. I can't figure out how to get this to work. Help me fix this. How do I get the video to focus? Okay, and it will literally be able to take a look at the picture and draw a diagram and tell me what to do. Okay, so I've just learned to incorporate this in anytime I'm struggling to figure stuff out.
yeah. I have not thought of using AI like to take a picture and say, what is wrong with this thing? I think that's
Oh yeah,
great.
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we were trying to figure we had this round object and we were trying to find the center. And it's really hard actually when you've got a 20, let's say 22 inches, and I had to ask ChatGPT, how do we find the center? And it gave me a bunch of different ideas. I said, I have nothing technical. And it's like, we'll get a string and put something in the middle and make sure that the string goes around.
Right.
So,
That's
so,
awesome.
that, yeah.
I feel like if there were more apps that would, support you without having to pay all the subscription fees and stuff, it would be great. But, if there's one or two that you can pay a subscription fee for and it helps your life, that's a great way to do that. I just wish AI would like fold my laundry for me.
Unfortunately, in about 3 or 4 years, you'll have these humanoid robots that will do exactly that.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, I'm here. I'm here for that. I'm here for that part. That's what I'm here for sure. All right, well, it is time for our magic moment, and I had to stop the cat from trying to knock some stuff off my desk. So, everything's a little rearranged here. But if you could wave a magic wand and eliminate one common opinion or misconception or theory surrounding mental illness, disabilities, or talking about mental health, what would it be?
I would say that it's about not having empathy for people who are struggling with mental
Mm,
health. I
absolutely.
think that would probably be the part that everybody has their demons, and a lot of times they fake what the way things are on the outside, and I think just being willing to not judge people for the struggles they're going through.
Yeah. And it definitely, sometimes people love to judge, and sometimes people love to not put themselves in other people's shoes while they judge. I think if more people had a little more empathy, more of a little bit of what's that person going through, I think that would be really helpful. Well, I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that very much. I'm going to turn the mic over to you and see if there's anything that we didn't mention or that we didn't talk about that you want to touch on. I will post your socials one more time, website, LinkedIn, and again, a link to that free AI Kickstart package with you as well. So if anyone's looking to connect, but I'll just turn it over to you and let
Yeah.
you have the floor.
So I did want to say that AI Kickstart package is really for organizations. So if you're anyone on here is part of an organization, at least 10 employees or more, that's looking at deploying AI, then I would be very happy to sit down with you and I can walk you through what the program is, and would definitely love to get some more case studies and testimonials from my website. And if there is a good match here in the audience, would be very excited to have a conversation.
Absolutely. And then, folks, if you have any more questions for Ben, feel free to pop them into the chat as well. But I will make sure to get that link posted onto socials for that free package, and just
And
kind of stress that it's organizations and all that good stuff.
and then I was going to say, anyone here that wants to connect on LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn and would definitely love to get feedback and I to connect with people that have questions, and just that's something. So again, like I said, my main social is LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yep. And I've got that link right there in the chat, so it's real easy. Just click through. Just click through and connect. Well, Ben, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate you just having this conversation. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. It was great to be on this. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right, chat, give me just a minute. I will be right back. Let me disconnect with Ben and we'll come back and play some games. Stick around.